Okay, that was a little loud in the room. We're gonna get started. We got some folks on the stream. We're streaming tonight, and so I'll be talking sometimes to the camera, but talking also in the room. But also, I wanted to just mention that I will probably, if you say anything, repeat it into the microphone, because that was some of the feedback we got from last night, was that people would ask questions in the room and we couldn't hear what people were asking. So, welcome. Thank you for coming. This is the Air Quality and Overburdened Communities Grant community outreach thing that you guys all came to, saw signs and posts and whatever. And we've been calling our initiative Breathe Easy. I'm going to quickly kind of go over some of the stuff. I got to make sure I forgot to actually say hello and turn the camera on. We're going to go over kind of the order of events for tonight, but before we do that, I just wanted to point out we do have a QR code here. If you would like to follow along to the slides in Spanish, if that feels better for you, then you can do that, and you can pull it up on your phone, or we also have printouts. We have printouts, right? I think somewhere. Yeah, so you could follow along in printouts. Sometimes it's easier to follow along to a slide if you can read in your own native language. That being said, let's jump in. I'm going to go to the PowerPoint here, and I'm going to go over here. And hi. All right, so we'll go through some introductions. We'll do an overview of the grant itself. We'll have some time to take the survey, because there's a survey attached to the initiative. We'll have some time after the survey to break into some small group discussions, prioritize the findings and the projects that we want to see in the city. And then also we'll do the prize drawing for those of you who have one of those tickets in your hands. So, yes, and things to keep in mind. We're here to do these things, learn about the grant, get your feedback, discuss air quality here in town, identify those projects, and also stay in touch, offer some opportunities for you guys to follow us and for us to connect. And so, yeah, just some things to keep in mind. We may not all agree on everything, and that's okay. That's why we're here to communicate and talk and get dialogue going in the community. So we'll just keep it constructive and civil. And yeah, don't lose your ticket. That was a thing. I forgot that people would maybe just throw it in their purse and then have to look for it for a little bit. So don't lose your ticket. All right, so really quickly, also too, some kind of alphabet soup, and where there's a lot of abbreviations for things in this project. So there's the Washington Air Quality and Overburdened Communities Grant. You might see written out like that, AQOCG. Climate Pollution Reduction Grants, CPRG. That's kind of the umbrella of what that falls into. Criteria: air pollution, CAP; air quality, AQ; greenhouse gases, GHGs; and then particulate matter, PM 2.5. This is something you'll see a lot tonight, and also if you're just researching air quality in general, you might see PM 2.5 or PM. It's people talking about little particulates in the air that are smaller than 2.5 micrometers. Cool? All right, so who are we? Welcome, thanks. I'm Cody. I am with Community System Solutions. We're a nonprofit based in Sacramento, California. We are the awardees of this grant to do these events. We're also partnering on this project with Central Washington University. There's some folks here from Central Washington tonight. They've been super helpful just connecting with us and connecting us to other community organizations and other people, and helping us think about how to present things and how to go about our project. They've been awesome. And then the grant itself is funded by the Washington Department of Ecology. So that's kind of who's funding things. Community System Solutions, what we do is we try to find communities that have issues, and we try to find the systems that provide solutions to those issues. So that's the long and the short of it, but part of that looks like identifying projects, as far as if this is concerned, an air quality project, that would look like identifying community members and reaching out to them, connecting with them, and identifying potential projects. We then create project designs and plans to present for funding, whether that's through grants or through outside capital stacks of investment, et cetera. We also try to work with skilled labor unions. We're connected to several different unions that do a number of skilled trades, and we like, when we're working on a project, to connect those folks so that we're using union labor on all of our jobs as much as we can. And yeah, and then that would hopefully, those investments go into the community and improve the public air quality and public health and the overall life in those communities. So, what is the grant, the AQOCG grant? Two purposes. So one is to engage the community, get your feedback, learn what you know already about air quality, educate if you need information or don't have information, and just have those types of dialogues around the concept of air quality. And then two, to design the projects. So community meetings and the survey and some of the other activities and tabling events and things like that that we've been doing are all wrapped around trying to meet the community where they're at. And then we'll be developing our plans based on everything we've learned from you. So that matters because you have lungs, right? Everybody's got lungs. None of us are living in a vacuum with no lungs. And all of your friends and family have them as well. So the air quality that goes into your lungs has a huge impact on your life, right? I'm sure that's not anything super new to people, but we just want to point it out. It affects everyone unilaterally. So we care about hearing from you guys about how your experience is with that. Okay, so the overburden part of this grant. This is a map of Washington. The Department of Ecology, based on their data, their resources, their monitoring, and their demographic information about the different communities in the state, they identified 16 communities that they'd like to kind of focus on first. So this grant is kind of tied in with a cap and trade program that started last year, and the funds that will be flowing out of that over the coming years, they'd like to spend on projects for improving air quality in communities, and they wanted to start with the communities that had the most need. So part of that has to do with actual air quality in these communities, but it also has to deal with the kind of intersection between air quality and the demographics of folks that are most at risk. So elderly, people with respiratory issues, things like that. So they compiled all of that and identified these 16 communities. Ellensburg is right here at the top. Don't freak out. You're not the #1 worst air quality place in the state. It's not a ranked list. It's just a list. Cool. So why? All right, I'm going to read this to you. I've been kind of trying to maybe not read things too much on the slides in these presentations, but there's a lot crammed in here, so we'll just kind of go through it together. So before I read it, I'm going to take a sip of water. Okay, so Northeast Ellensburg met the statewide screening criteria based on EJ Screen. That's Environmental Justice Screen is a mapping tool that looks at lots of different demographics and data. And they met the screening criteria based on an elevated level of PM 2.5, those particulate matters we talked about. The community is currently in attainment with the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, so that's like kind of a bar that's set. But it does experience really high levels of 2.5 of PM. And frequently, right, so they're looking at kind of a average over time, over a year, but there are times where Ellensburg is right at that bar, right? It's just passing. It could be much better. We could be much safer. And frequently we're over that line. It just averages out to being within attainment. The southeast portion of Ellensburg was identified as disadvantaged by CEJST, Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool. It's another tool, mapping tool that looks at data and from like monitors and resources and field studies along with demographics. And so Ellensburg also was identified as disadvantaged in the category of workforce development, which is an interesting thing that these types of programs could tackle as well, kind of a byproduct. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So although only the northeast portion of the city met the screening criteria, the area was expanded to include the census box groups for most of the city of Ellensburg. So that's pretty much everything bounded by I-90. This includes most of the population and the sensitive receptors like schools, healthcare facilities. The city is a relatively small in area, and the past ecology mobile monitoring has shown pollution levels to be relatively consistent across the community. So pretty much wherever you're at in town, it's similar. Yes, I was going to say, any questions on this? Because that's a whole bunch of data. Yeah. You want to speak to that?
So the disadvantaged piece of this is actually based on the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool, which is no longer online, right? It was a federal tool that's been removed from online. We've been keeping updated for the communities that we work in as DJ Screening. The disadvantage is based on 8 factors, and then a 9th factor that was in the Biden bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is if you were a community that got less than all of the grant money that was available over the last decade in your state, and you got less than 10% of that money in your community, that automatically triggered moving to looking at the climate DJ screen. So all of these communities have been well below average for state of Washington grants. And then workforce was one of the 8 factors. So that map looks at the nation, and 50 percentile would be you are average with the nation. Above 90 percentile means you are one of the worst in the nation. And workforce here is above 90th percentile. So that then triggers the overburden part of the community, and the air quality was the 2.5.
So let me clarify that a little
Yeah.
further. So when you're saying that particular criteria, that workforce
Yeah.
criteria, is that just the number of people who are not working?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is of working age that are not working.
Yes. And it's not just okay. So also, I was looking at the mic levels. I'm 100% sure none of that made it onto the stream. So kind of just to quickly nutshell what was just talked about is that there are multiple criteria, which kind of talked about that intersection between air quality issues and also demographic concerns for a number of reasons. Mike was talking about the different criteria that can kind of qualify something as a disadvantaged community, right? A census tract, and that can be, that's the overburden part. And so, yeah, workforce development is one of those. The thing about workforce development is not just low employment. It's not just unemployment. It's also folks that are unemployed and don't have the skills to enter the workforce, right? So it's not just like there was a layoff at the plant. It's like there are X amount of people who don't have jobs, and those people also don't have high school diplomas or college degrees or skilled trades training, right? Or there's a lack of training in the community for those types of things. So all of 8 of the categories have like also a subset of like 10 other categories. I've been like deep in this world for the past year or so looking at this stuff, and it's interesting how many different like things are considered. and the amount of detail that goes into picking through census data, picking through the various environmental monitors and reports and field screens and things like that happen. So yeah, all of these things are they're intersecting to show an additional need. It's not just air, but particularly in Ellensburg, it's air and there's unemployment and a lack of training or folks that are undertrained, if that makes sense.
One more question. So is it just undertraining, or is it that there's not the opportunities in that area?
It can be like a combination of them.
Repeat.
Yeah. It's not just, you're asking if it's just a lack of training or if it's a lack of the availability of training. It's always kind of a combination of things. So it'll be like there's these many schools in the area. I would imagine Ellensburg is doing pretty well in that department because there's plenty of high schools, there's plenty of training facilities, and there's a university, right? But so in that case, it's more about a lack of certificates and diplomas and things like that from community members.
Actually, was if there's a lack of opportunities for people to get jobs here. So even if they were training,
Yeah.
or it's a combination
Yeah,
of
yeah.
training and the availability for a job.
Yes. The unemployment side looks at the folks that are unemployed as well as the available jobs in a community as well. Yeah. It's there's 15 different things on at any given moment that are kind of looked at against one another to make these determinations.
Can I ask one more question?
Yep.
So it says Northeast Ellensburg met the state rate criteria, but then it also says that the mobile monitoring, that the 2.5 is relatively consistent. And so Northeast Ellensburg, is that more so because of difference in demographic? Because it also, let's see.
I think it's that Northeast Ellensburg was worse, but the pollution, so the 2.5, the PM 2.5. So Northeast, the question was, what was it about Northeast Ellensburg when later it says that it's relatively consistent? It's that it was worse, but just not, but the whole community had similar levels, if that makes sense. I think probably Northeast was above the line and the rest of the town was under. Did you have an idea?
There's a link to the maps, to the undercurrent criteria.
Yes.
On the CSS website.
Yes, there are. Yeah.
breathe.css.com.
Yeah.
And all the data is there.
Yes, that was something that someone asked us recently, reached out and asked, you were talking about these data and these numbers and where can I go look at them? And yes, it's on our website, breathe-easy-css.org. And that's where you can find that kind of stuff. Yeah, you can find, yeah. Okay, cool. Already some dialogue. I'm going to be playing relay to the folks online. Let me go check and see. All right, we're good there too. Okay, so the timeline. So we have the survey portion. We've launched the survey a while ago. We're going to run that through June 30th. So we said. I still haven't updated this. I meant to do it this afternoon. But we have the community meetings. You're at one right now. Those two things were supposed to, and then the project report. These dates on here got changed this week. So we got an extension on all of the deadlines on this because starting this project was delayed because of federal funding freezes and things like that. So we got an extension on the project for a year. We're going to file our project reports probably August, September. But we're going to keep running the survey, and we're going to be finished with the community meetings 2 weeks from now. So we're not doing any more community meetings. We'll still do tabling at events. We'll still go to some community meetings. You'll still see us around sometimes and see some of our minions around. Our minions, our wonderful, awesome people who have joined this effort. You'll see them around at events and things. But we are gonna wrap up the community meetings by June 30th, actually. And but we're gonna continue the surveys throughout this year and into when we're getting ready to apply for projects so that we can have as much data as possible to push into those applications. We'll talk about the surveys a little more here in a second. But that's kind of the timeline. Real quick, I want to say 2 slides here, what this grant is, right? So it's kind of reiterating here. It is engaging the communities, educating, gathering input. It is prioritizing the community projects, benefit projects, identifying those projects, writing those plans, and trying to achieve some significant air quality improvements in your town. What it is not is that some air quality concerns are best tackled by regulatory action or policy change or local ordinances, right? Burn bans. Some European cities have banned banned gas vehicles in the city center, things like that, right? Like those are policy changes that can have an effect. They do have an effect, but they're not what this grant is specifically, what the funds are earmarked to identify as projects. So these funds are supposed to be kind of tangible, physical, boots on the ground projects that do kind of 2 things. One, they address it in a physical way, right? Actually clean the air in the neighborhood, as opposed to like regulatory would be like, what's that called? Someone help me out. My words all disappeared. Intervention, right? So like an intervention prevention, right? This would be more of a specific intervention to like clean up air in the area. And then 2 is the economic benefit, right? If there's billions of dollars coming through the cap and trade program over the next however long it runs, then those dollars can be funneled directly into the communities. And we can do these projects, but also train folks in the community to be a part of doing these projects, pay them to be on those workforces, get them jobs, get them training in fields that they can continue working, spend those dollars here in town at all of your other awesome local businesses, where they will then spend their money at all of their other local businesses, trying to pull these funds into the community and make an economic impact as well. As where legislative practices or whatever, right? You spend money to write bills and lobby senators and congressmen and people and whatnot, and you make change, and that money is effective and those practices are effective, but the money kind of leaves the community. It doesn't stay in. So that's what this is about. Okay, before we begin, any questions or comments from here on out? I moved this slide forward because I used to kind of jump ahead and be like, does anyone have any questions? And then I would go a slide or 2 later and it would be like, does anyone have any questions? So I moved this today. That's why it says 16, even though we're on like 13. Any questions? Everybody good? Everybody's rocking? Does everybody get pizza? Okay, cool. As far as that is concerned too, yeah, pizza, food, snacks. Also, there's a restroom right over here if you need it. Cool. All right, so what we're going to do next, so that was kind of the introduction part. We are going to take the survey if you haven't done so already. If you need assistance, we'll tackle that here in a second, but then we're going to break out into small group discussions, which maybe we could do a small group of 2 groups maybe. That might be good. Or if we decide we could all do it together, it's up to you. We will go over these questions, like how are you impacted by poor air quality? What air quality issues are your biggest concerns? What do you want to see done to improve air quality? Are there specific projects, things that you could name? And what do you think was missing from today's discussion? The first 3 of those will be addressed also in the survey. So as you're taking the survey, you can kind of be thinking about how you might want to discuss this with folks later. But also, we definitely want to make sure that we're hearing from you if we should be talking about other things or discussing other important issues. Yeah. And then we want you to lead the conversation. So, my voice is getting tired already, and I want to hear from you guys. Okay. As you're moving into the survey, we've moved this up too because I just wanted to kind of have a moment to have you guys think about some of these things. You might see potential projects or potential air quality concerns within the survey that maybe you're not as familiar with. So we'll just go over them a little bit, some of these types of things. So criteria air pollution can be caused by electricity generation, how we do that, whether it's in a cleaner way like air, or if solar, or if it's in a dirtier way like coal. Transportation, how we move around, what we move people around in, what kind of infrastructure is built around transportation and community transportation. Specific industries and practices that they have, what and how they make and build and do things. The buildings themselves, that's homes, that's large buildings, hospitals, whatever. Buildings have stuff in them. I wasn't really fully aware of this until Mike was telling me about it recently. Like, I think of buildings maybe polluting as in like, well, they're running their heaters and they're like, using electricity, which some plant is making somewhere, or maybe the building itself is leaking and not doing a good job of being efficient, right? But also, buildings are full of stuff, right? All around us. Stuff is made, a lot of it, with chemicals. And as the buildings heat and cool over time, those chemicals can leach out and leak, into the air in the building. And then if that building is not very efficient and it's circulating air in and out in a non-filtered kind of way, that stuff, those chemicals can get into the community as well. Agricultural practices, there are tons of. And then natural working lands like forest fire management, etc. Wastes and materials, dumps and landfills and recycling plants and all that kind of stuff. We had a question.
So Ellensburg is on the list because of PM 2.5.
Yes.
This list you're interested in, is that on all criteria that they choose?
Yes. I think, so they were saying, if I heard you correctly, Ellensburg is specifically on the list because of PM 2.5, and you were saying all of these things could contribute to that. Is that what you're?
No, I'm asking if on the survey we're responding to just 2.5.
Right. Yeah. And part of it is like, okay.
You'll find the whole list on the survey.
Yeah. There's a big.
These plus on question 3.
Yeah. There's.
When we get to project specific for
Yeah.
Ellensburg,
Mm-hmm.
are we targeting PM 2.5?
Yeah.
Or could there be a project for nitrous oxide?
Totally. So the community was identified, so they were asking, like, can the projects target things other than PM 2.5, because that was the thing that Ellensburg was identified for. And that's a great question, because of the 2.5, Ellensburg made the list, right? However, air quality is an ongoing, constant thing in communities, and just because something isn't an issue today or didn't set off flags or cross barriers or whatever today doesn't mean that they couldn't be still addressed and still better. And so we want to, the biggest part of this is us understanding the lived experience of people in this community and the things that really matter to them the most, so that we are addressing the issues that got us here, but also we're addressing other issues if we can. If that makes sense. And also, PM 2.5 is pretty much everything under the teeny tiny stuff, right? Which is a grip of pollutants, air pollutants. So it's not, smoke is one of the things that we talk about a lot of times in PM 2.5 discussions, but it's because it's under 2.5 and you can see it. But there's stuff smaller than that you can't see. And stuff smaller than that you can't see and you can't smell. So, yeah. Yes.
I was going to ask, because public health gets a lot of confusion too. So people get confused when asked, like, hey, what is your question regarding to? Because it's PM 2.5. They think, are we focusing on
nutshell all of that really quickly into the microphone. But first of all, Lucy from Kittitas Public Health. Hey, Lucy, awesome person. If you don't know Lucy, get to know. Partnering with us on this grant and have their own wing about education stuff. So this is honestly a lot of that will fall to you and your team, educating folks on what things are. And as we're kind of focused on what do you know already, what do you experience that is of the most concern. And a lot of the data so far has been wildfires, but it's not the only thing. And through kind of like looking at the actual data from the monitors that are here, through looking at field studies, through looking at your feedback, and through like educating the community about things, we're hoping to kind of, I mean, ideally, we're trying to create community buy-in, right? Because we can say, you all need to change out your cars to electric cars, and everyone should do it, and we're going to write a program to do that. But then if everyone's going, I don't want to do that, you know, like, I mean, maybe I do, maybe I don't, but we can't force you to do that, right? We have to find the things that are both a concern to you, but also something that you're going to go, yeah, let's do this, please. Like, let's get behind it, and let's be community champions for these types of ideas. The types of people like you in this room that show up to a community meeting like this are the types of people that we need communicating with your friends and neighbors as well when it comes time to implement projects. Yes.
Matt, so the two deliverables are the top 10 list from the community of issues identified. So we have a top 10 list. Clearly, smoke, you know, is going to be towards the top, but there will be all of those others. And then the second deliverable is really only one project plan we've got. We're already working on 4 project plans, and it could end up being a few more than that. Here are the type of projects that could address, if they're funded, these top 4 things. But we've been creeping already. This morning I was already creeping into number 5.
Yeah.
So far we've got them ranked. So far, but we're getting more. You know, it's going to change over time. We will talk about all 10 because we are working in 5 other areas where we're doing this, and so we're already seeing what could be out of this list.
Yeah.
Those type of projects. So we don't want to limit to just smoke and not just limit to 2.5 because there's a lot of money on the table with the cap and trade bill.
Yeah. Yeah. So to reiterate what Mike was saying, there's the 2 big deliverables are the top 10 list, not just one thing. And so the ecology will know all of the issues, and then the projects will be, we're supposed to deliver one, we're going to deliver several, because there are already there's already a noticeable kind of clumping of issues at the top. But we want more and more and more data as much as we can. So please take the survey, but also encourage other folks to do so. One more.
For this particular round of funding, is it going to be within a PIP 1 project, or is it possible that the funds will be divided?
The question is about the round of funding and how it's going to be like put into play and put into work, and is it just one project, or we're going to do possibly multiples at a time? Probably the most honest answer to that question is I don't know. The cap and trade program started last year, and in the first year it put in $1 billion into that program. We haven't really talked about cap and trade very much, but it's essentially organizations, companies that are an industry, right? Number 3 up here, that are polluters, right? They can pay to offset their pollution into the cap and trade program, and those funds are supposed to be turned around and put into pollution reduction projects like this, so that hopefully whatever they're doing is offset by lots of dollars to try to fix it elsewhere, right? That is a debatable kind of like thing. There's pros and cons. There's lots of people that talk about these types of things, and they're much smarter than I am. But it is what it is. They're doing it. It's here. It's not really going anywhere. In the first year, $1 billion went in. So we're expecting around that every year as they're running it, because these companies are not slowing down. That being said, after the first year of plugging into it, the governor balanced the budget by borrowing from the cap and trade funds, so all of it. So we needed that $1 billion to balance the budget in Washington. If you were following legislation over the past month, it's been tight and lots of back and forth and discussions about how to balance the budget, how to make a budget that's going to work for the next biennium, 2 years, right? So there is an assumption that borrowed funds will eventually go back into that, right, in future budget payments, et cetera. But also that the cap and trade program will keep running. And probably by next year, there'll be another $1 billion. So our kind of goal is to get this input, gather as much data as we can, and then the biennium, it starts, the fiscal year for the state of Washington is July through June. So we're going to submit our reports, right? But we're going to keep collecting data, and then by the calendar year, January-ish, right? We should start seeing information from the cap and trade program about how to apply for funds for projects. And at that point, we'll have all of the data, and we can start putting in our applications, getting them prepped so that July 1, 2026, we can submit for projects. So we could get Ellensburg 2 or 3 things going at once. We could get them one, and then we do another one after that, and then we do another one after that. It really kind of depends on the type of project and the budgets for it, right? If there's a couple that are low-hanging fruit, easy wins, these are affordable, cheap, make a big impact, we could do that in a weekend and then work on this bigger thing. We might do that kind of stuff. But there's no way to predict the future on that as far as what will get approved to be happening all at once, right? So, yeah, did you want to, yeah.
Yeah, but we do know from experience in the California Cap and Trade Program grants that you don't get funded unless you bring your community together, and there's community organizations on the ground that are leading the charge. You have to have on-the-ground champions. So as we release survey number 2, part of survey number 2, which you'll start seeing information about, is that helping identify those champions and who wants to help champion certain projects. What are you working on now? We're doing a lot of outreach to organizations. What are you working on now? What are you really interested in? So that people can get ready for this. If they want to use our plan as a grant application, perfect. If they've got another plan, we can help incorporate that. Great. So I would think that there'd be, in most communities, half a dozen applications. They go in from different organizations competing against each other like a particular grant round. And folks that are more passionate about it, have more data, have more people, writing letters and making phone calls.
Mhm.
Not necessarily the top project that takes care of
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah. Basically, our biggest challenge between now and next year is to get ourselves organized as much as we can. Get ourselves educated, get the community educated, get our friends and colleagues involved with things, start these little grassroots kind of movements of folks go, we want to do project X, and we think it will have a good impact, so let's learn as much as we can about it. Let's educate folks, et cetera, et cetera. I want to move to this next slide about kind of the benefits of addressing these things, because it's not just air quality, right? We improve the air quality, but there's also co-pollutant reductions, right? So generally things that pollute the air also pollute groundwater, things like that. We can improve overall public health kind of holistically. We improve our water quality. We can provide more climate resiliency and soil quality for ag practices if we can improve them and educate and train and provide equipment or whatever it may be. Because generally when you address some of the ag practices that contribute to pollution, it is better for the farm better for the farmer, better for the soil and the output of the product, and eventually makes them more money, right? They just don't have the utilities, resources, education to do it, or even time sometimes to do that kind of stuff. So that can be an awesome one. Providing more green spaces, right? Like we live or you guys live in a valley that's kind of desertous, doesn't have tons of trees. There's some in the cities, that's great, but we could always use more. We could improve the green spaces. We could move towards cleaner energy sources. We could move. The biggest one for me too is always this economic development, pulling those funds into the community, training folks, creating workforce development programs, getting people into skilled trade unions like we're passionate about working with. Yeah. So I want to move into the survey. We're post-survey, we're going to move into our group discussion time. And so we're going to drop off of the live stream. And I do want to give time for folks to provide feedback from the live stream, but I'm not seeing any folks in the stream at the moment. I'm going to leave the stream going with the survey link up for a little bit for folks that watch it later, because that happens sometimes. And I'll just make a commitment to make sure I'm going and looking at our comments and talking to people online, if we can gather some feedback from the videos there. But we'll end the live stream, and then we can discuss and talk without having to repeat everything that we say. So it's a little easier. But if you, we're going to take the survey. I do want to speak real briefly on developments with the survey stuff. So we've created this survey. We're calling it Survey 1. It's a really brilliant name. And it is kind of an overview of people's experience. It's a bit of a scratching the surface on things because we didn't want to overwhelm people with tons. But part of our partnership with CWU was working with one of the classes on creating a second survey that's a deeper dive into each of the different types of projects. So when we release it, it'll be released probably early next week. If you want to take that, right, you can, and you'll see a short blurby description of a type of project to just give people some kind of background context of the types of things we're talking about, and then ask a few questions about what you think community buy-in would be, the reception to that kind of stuff, if you think these types of things are effective or not, right? And then towards the end, we'll have a little bit deeper demographic conversations too, because we want to know, again, understand that intersection of how people are experiencing air quality with the types of other experiences in their life they have, right? Age, gender, respiratory health, those types of things. We're discussing kind of how deep do we go into that, because we don't want to make people feel uncomfortable telling us their whole life story, but it is good to be able to kind of piece those things together and know, oh, well, there are, elderly black women in the community experience this worse because they live in this neighborhood and they have, COPD or whatever, you know what I mean? Understanding those kinds of things, if we can, is important as well. So that's kind of the second survey, is a deeper dive into the projects and kind of educating folks on it. And the class has also helped us pull together a bunch of resources and links and places where you can go get primary, empirical data type sources on these issues and see projects that have happened before. And so there'll be links on that site where that survey lives, in the survey, and also kind of around. And we're going to be sharing out that data from Survey 1 and Survey 2 in a dynamic, real-time hub for the community, so that they can keep track of this initiative and how it grows and what the output is from the community as they've taken the surveys. So who's not taking the survey? Have you taken the survey? Have you taken the survey?
I think everybody here has taken the survey.
Have you taken the survey?
Me?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you sure? Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So I think everyone has taken the survey, and we're kind of, this meeting feels a little more about us, like building the foundations of that champion group for these types of projects in the community. So we'll move into some discussion time, and then, yeah, that'll be it. Thanks, live streaming people.
And then we'll prioritize projects.
Yeah, we'll prioritize projects, and we'll catch all of those folks at the next one. Do do do.